Here's a little comfort for single people living alone and feeling alone right now. Enjoy the ease, freedom, and frequency with which you can watch porn and masturbate your ass off. For your friends living with roommates or that significant other they wanted so badly, not so much. Hey, this is the George Hahn podcast, and I'm George Hahn. Nice to be on the mic again. Welcome to the New World Order. Holy shit, you guys. How the fuck did we get here? You know, it wasn't 2 weeks ago. Of course, this was in the news, and everything seemed, I don't know, like it wasn't coming for us, and then it came for us. Kind of like that feeling of invincibility where, I don't know, bad things happen to other people but not us. That happened to us on 9/11. Happens to people who get, a terminal disease, and you sort of are tempted to ask yourself, why me? Why us? And if there is a God or something running this show, and the answer would be, well, why not you? As my mother would say, when she's, when she reminds me, when you're tempted to say, why me, ask yourself, why not you? It sucks. This sucks. I am talking to you in my tiny little apartment on the Upper West Side in New York City. This week begins week 2 of my self-quarantine since my job closed as of Monday, March 16th. About my job, let me just get into it a little bit. Some people have been very curious about it, which I understand. I moved back to New York on January 9th. I got a job working with an incredible guy. He's a cosmetic dermatologist, one of the top ones in the city. I'm going to be biased and say I think he's the best in the business, certainly on the East Coast. And he was in the market for someone to serve as sort of a concierge for his VIP patient base, because he does work with a good number of celebrities and VIPs and all of that stuff. I can't tell you who because there are laws that prevent me from doing so, because this is a medical thing, and with this cosmetic dermatologist, you are a patient, not a client or a customer. You are a patient. He is an MD. And so I just make sure that his patients are having sort of a Four Seasons experience, really. Do they have something to drink? Are they comfortable? If they're nervous, put them at ease. And I also make sure that his day runs smoothly, because when he comes out of one patient room, he doesn't necessarily know who's next and what's next. And so I just kind of grease the cogs in the machine. And to be honest with you, this job kind of fell into my lap. It was an opportunity that was presented to me by an old friend of mine, actually my very first employer, and also happens to be a friend of this doctor. So he said, this guy's looking for this thing. This is kind of what they think the job is going to be, because the job does not exist, this role that I do. And there were some set things when I started, but there is a great deal of kind of making it up as we go. It has been, until a week ago, it has been an adventure, and I get along with this guy like a house on fire. To kill the curiosity, by the way, his name is Dr. Robert Anolik, Anolik, and he's a cosmetic dermatologist, and he's amazing, and not only brilliant at what he does. What I appreciate, or one of the many things I appreciate about him, is that if a patient comes in and wants to do something to her or his face that he doesn't think would be right, he's not going to do it. He's about making patients' faces look natural and just refreshed, and not blowing up cheeks or lips and things that really naturally aren't there. And so I appreciate his aesthetic. And he's really smart. Like, this guy studied. I kind of marvel at anybody who, clearly studied. And he's really good at what he does, and he's a really nice guy, and his patients love him for very good reason. And I really love working with him, and it's been a total pleasure until Monday the 16th, a week ago today. As I record this, I'm sitting in my apartment talking to you on the 23rd of March, and I've been self-quarantined here in the apartment for about a week now. And so, yeah, this is a brave new world. I gotta say, though, I've been a freelancer working from home since the early aughts after my last restaurant job. Working from home or just being at home all day feels very different now, even though I've got a lot of years of experience under my belt doing it. This is different, you guys. Before, my self-imposed homebound day work life was just that, really, self-imposed. It was my choice. And I was also free to meet friends for lunch or go out to dinner and all that. And, that's, as we know, off the board now. The backdrop of today's situation inevitably brings a lot of clouds hanging over being at home all day. But I have found some sunshine here. And I don't want to deliver doom and gloom, because left to my own devices and in my default setting, I may just kind of not want to ever get out of bed under the circumstances, but I get out of bed. First of all, I have dogs that need walking and taking care of and feeding and stuff, so that gets me out of bed. But let me just start with my apartment, all right? Now, when I was living in Cleveland, I was living in Cleveland for the past 3 years, from late 2016 to literally January 8th of this year, 2020, so just a little over 3 years. I had this sick apartment in downtown Cleveland. It was 1,000 square feet. It's on my blog. You can see it. 1,000 square feet, 13-foot ceilings. It was this old warehouse that this developer, this guy named Neil Vinny, had been sitting on for decades until he had the right money to do with it what he really wanted to do with it. And he finally got the money together. And it was, the warehouses were like over a century old. And in Cleveland, I don't know about New York, I presume maybe the same is true, but when you get historic preservation tax credits, you are, I think, legally obliged to preserve a certain integrity of the building's roots and history. And so it is still very warehousey, this building. And like, I had 4 walls basically bordering my unit. One of them was, the original brick, and I could see there were pillars in my apartment. You for not a minute would forget that you were in an old warehouse. But at the same time, a brand new renovation, new floors, brand new appliances, washer, dryer in the apartment. I mean, it was fucking glorious, right? So, and very dog friendly. That was one of the reasons I found it. And I was the first person to live in my unit. It was a virgin apartment when I moved in. That was a first for me. So when I got this job in New York, when, I got the green light, I got the notification that I was hired, I had to find an apartment in New York double quick, right? So I was using between the Zillow app and StreetEasy, searching feverishly, actually in or near my old zip code. I lived in Hell's Kitchen on the west side, which is just west of Times Square, in a zip code 10036. And just north of that, which is kind of like the northern half of Hell's Kitchen, from like, I think 48th or 49th Street all the way up to 57th and beyond. The zip code is 10019. So it's still Hell's Kitchen, but not so Times Square-y, not as busy and stupid. And I was looking in that zip code, and what stopped me from being able to find an apartment there were my dogs. For some reason, even though I was searching for a pet-friendly apartment and looking at pet-friendly units, whether it was the individual owner in the condo building or the management company or the company that owned the whole building or whatever, they drew the line at 2 dogs. You could have 1 dog, and a lot of the buildings had a weight limit for the dog, but 2 dogs, nope, sorry, we can't rent to you. And so I kept hitting that wall, which was a bummer, because I saw a couple of apartments in 10019 that I really liked. But so I just expanded the search. I am a West Sider. Not only am I a New Yorker, but I'm a West Sider. I don't Sorry, that's Lenore, one of my dogs, and that's her tags on her collar as she was shaking. You're going to get sound effects when I'm recording this thing. There will be a sirens outside, I'm sure. So anyway, I expanded the search and looked on the Upper West Side. I lived on the Upper West Side when I first moved to New York 25 years ago in 1994. I lived on 74th between Central Park West and Columbus. Good apartment, small studio. Shared it with my friend James. It was tight quarters, but I lived there for a year until I found my place in Hell's Kitchen, my first place of 9. Anyway, so I started looking on the Upper West Side, and I found this building. I think this was in the Street Easy app. I found this building that was cool. It's a fully rental building. It's an old building. It used to be a hotel. And they were cool, 2 dogs. And I submitted an application online, and like within 10 minutes or less, I was approved. And that was fun. And spoke with the guy who, in the office, and we had a great conversation, and he was very customer service oriented. What do you need? When do you want to start the lease? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I found this apartment. It is small. I would say I went from 1,000 square feet in Cleveland to, I'm looking at it now. I mean, maybe it's around 400 square feet. It's small, you guys. And my kitchen is really kind of non-existent. My kitchen is really like an airplane galley. I have 2 burners. Although it is small, it is nice to have gas burners again. In Cleveland, it's all about an electric range. Here in New York, it's gas. And like my tea kettle, my water kettle heats up so much faster. But it's tiny. I don't even have like a real oven. I have an under-the-counter fridge, no freezer to speak of, these 2 burners, and a convection microwave oven. And that's it, and minimal cabinet space. So I have really had to pare down. I've gotten rid of a lot of things. I have 1 closet and my dresser, and all my clothes are there. Like I got rid of some clothes, a lot of furniture, practically all my furniture, because I was fully furnished by the time I left Cleveland in that nice apartment. So that's where I am, and that's where I'm holed up now, and it's kind of laid out like a hotel room because I didn't want to try to turn a studio into something a studio really never wants to be unless you've got the money for a really good Murphy bed. And the best Murphy beds, at least for me, they're not cheap, so, it's like a hotel room in here. So that's the situation I'm in. It's very much, as I said, hotel living. And, no complaints here. I'm actually good with it. Regarding working from home, as I said, I've been home for a week from the job. My own experience, supported by some recent articles I've read. There was one in the New York Times recently written by an astronaut. It was actually very helpful in sort of reinforcing what I've already known about working from home, some suggestions, and suggesting most importantly, or what stood out to me most, was that one needs a routine, a schedule. I kind of have that already. There are also little things like, designating a place for your work in your apartment or house and making sure that you dress for work. And also, and this is where I had a really big boundary problem as a freelancer, you also have to make sure that you end your work day. I can be a little compulsive with things, work included, and there were times when I was freelancing from home, I would be working well into like late night. If I got a little obsessed with a project, whether I was writing something or building a website or designing some graphics or something, I can go a little overboard and not have boundaries, and it's not very mentally healthy. You have to end your workday. What stood out to me most when I read some articles with suggestions about how to acclimate to home work, like working at home, was the schedule thing, the routine thing, and discipline, and also getting dressed. This week, today, Monday, the 23rd, my second week being away from my job, I am today, as I sit here talking on this microphone right now, I am wearing a suit. I don't have the jacket on, but I have on, it's a blue pinstripe. It's a 3-piece. I'm wearing the vest. I have a shirt, tie, vest, dress socks, and I'm wearing one of my wingtips today. I don't know. It feels good. It makes me feel like I'm in a work day. And y'all know I like wearing suits, so It's a nice it's a nice feeling, actually. It makes me feel like I am at work, which is how I need to feel right now. Exercise is another important thing. If you can get out, take a walk, just maintaining my 6-foot distance from people. This little apartment where I live is a half a block away from Central Park, which is wonderful. And it's great to get over there, especially with the dogs. I can also walk further west and go to Riverside Park, which is a great walk too. I ride my bicycle, again, under the circumstances, staying away from people. I can only ride my bicycle weather permitting because I don't have any wet gear. And then as far as weight training and stuff like that, I have a little rug space between my bed and my window, which enables me to do some abdominal work. And I also have some dumbbells, and I just, do the routines that I've been doing for years. I would suggest them, but I'm not a trainer. They work well for me. I feel strong. I'm looking all right. It's about getting some exercise too, balancing. Because this quarantine thing and working from home can throw us all off. And some resources that I've found helpful. I am a big fan of our digital resources that we've got here in our lives today in modern living. Talking about Netflix and Spotify and other streaming things. So for audio, let me recommend, this has got to be my favorite streaming radio station. It's called Eclectic 24 from a radio station out in LA called KCRW. KCRW, in fact, has an app. If you just go to an app store and download it, it's called KCRW. And you can listen to Eclectic 24, and they also have a 24-hour news channel, too, which includes NPR and BBC and other news sources. I, of course, also listen to WNYC here in New York, which is our NPR affiliate, which has been invaluable during this time. And really impressed with our local hosts. I'm thinking in particular of this guy, Brian Lair. New Yorkers know who I'm talking about. He's got the 10 a.m. to noon slot every day. He's been working from his living room. I mean, everybody's working from home. It's not just Brian. But it's just, the show goes on. You know what I mean? That's impressive to me. So Eclectic 24, WNYC, NPR, wherever you are, listen to NPR. It's fantastic. An app that I like to use for streaming radio with my phone or my iPad is called TuneIn. The TuneIn app is great for streaming radio stations. For podcasts, I am a huge fan and avid user of Pocket Casts, that app. It's called Pocket Casts, one word, I think. Download it, use it. The premium one is free now. It was a paid thing when I got it, but now, the deluxe edition is now free, so lucky you, unlucky me. Hey, worth it, I think. But pretty user-friendly, intuitive, so just download it, start using it, find your favorite shows and all that stuff. My iPad, invaluable. My news subscriptions to New York Times, Washington Post, Financial Times. I also read books and some magazines. I do subscribe to Apple News, which gives you access to all those magazines as well, and that's really good. The only thing when you read from the iPad is that you have to make sure that you kill notifications when you're reading long-form articles or books, because that intrusion that pops onto the screen can be really annoying. So I got to be sure to kill those notifications when I'm really absorbed in reading stuff. And perhaps most importantly to some people, video. We all have Netflix, or at least I hope a lot of us have Netflix. I also enjoy Spotify Premium. The nice thing about Spotify Premium is that it includes a subscription to Hulu. So bonus for everyone there. I also subscribe to HBO Now, Amazon Prime, and one of my favorites, this is a little esoteric maybe for some people, but I'm a movie nerd. And there is a collection of films called the Criterion Collection, and for years they did DVDs and then Blu-rays. I think they did late video discs before that, but they are a lot of them restored movies from old movies not necessarily old movies, but just, I don't know what their selection is, the criteria they use to bring a film into their collection, but restored movies. And then with the movies, you get these supplemental things like director commentary, little documentaries about the filmmakers, the making. I geek out on that shit. So the Criterion Collection has been doing that for years with hard media like DVDs and Blu-rays, but now with streaming. And they've got a streaming channel and an app, a subscription service, totally worth it for a guy like me. And it's called the Criterion Channel. You can watch it on your iPad, or it's on. I also have an Apple TV hooked up to my television. So that's how I watch those, because I love, I like a lot of old movies, and I love what's in their collection, which is huge. Yeah, that's what I've been doing on the streaming tip. So trying to have some discipline. I've been reaching out to a lot of people just to connect. I have to confess that it can feel very lonely at times. I'm really grateful that I've got the dogs. I've been living alone forever, so I'm kind of used to that. It's just the not being able to see people in person thing that's starting to work my nerves. And we got to balance this, because this is the state of things for us for a good while, according to our amazing governor, Andrew Cuomo. Things are going to be like this for months. This is not something that's going to be over in a couple of weeks. So this is, as I said at the top of the show, our new world order for the moment. Interestingly, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about shifts in the environment. With so much on pause, bodies of water are seeing fish and dolphins and things that haven't been around for ages. Air is cleaner. That's something to consider. And quite frankly, if you ask me, the real virus on this planet is the human race. And just, how we sort of as Bill Maher says it, we kind of rat fuck this planet with the shit that we do to it so that we can drive a bigger car or eat more food or eat more meat, really. I don't want to impose anything on anybody, but it is worth considering, in my opinion, that this virus and the other pandemic viruses originated from animals or animal products, meat markets. You don't hear about things like this coming from a vegetable market, a wide outbreak from asparagus. I mean, there might be a little bacteria infection, but it's never like there was one with Chipotle some years back. It was with lettuce, and there was an iceberg lettuce thing, or no, romaine lettuce recall. But they're never on. They're not on this scale, not even close. These viruses that decimate thousands, and the one we're in right now, came from an animal situation. So that makes me think, I'm not a vegan. I call myself vegan adjacent, but there are no meat products, or animal products rather, in my kitchen at all. When I'm out, I'll have maybe fish or some eggs and some cheese if it's going around. But I don't buy it and seek it and bring it to my home. So that's why I call myself vegan adjacent. But I don't know. The human appetite for animals and animal byproducts has, let's be honest, gang, introduced a lot of viruses into the human system that otherwise would not have been introduced into the human system if humans did not have an appetite for animals or their byproducts. It's just something I think about. Other than that, I just hope everybody is safe. Stay home. That's what I'm doing. I go out when I walk the dogs or when I go to the store. There's plenty of toilet paper out there. Everybody fucking relax. And staying busy and staying entertained. There's plenty for us to stream, listen to, read, do. If I did yoga, I'd be doing that. I have space on my floor to do yoga. But I don't. I do other things, and I'm happy with that. But do something. And exercise does curb depression. Because it's really easy to slip into a depressive mode with the way things are right now. So, we have to take action. And And I've always said that, for ourselves to improve, for our cities to improve, to grow, to make progress. This is one of my rants about Cleveland. For that city or any individual to grow and progress and kind of be amazing. I don't mean like famous amazing or something, but just feel and be amazing. You have got to make changes and sacrifices. And here we are, forced to make changes and sacrifices, not to improve, but to survive. Maybe we're learning that we can do it. I look outside, there are not as many cars, or bicycle sales are up in New York. People are riding bicycles everywhere. And everyone always said, well, New York could never be Amsterdam. Cleveland could never be Amsterdam. Guess what? Riding a bike is good for your health. And it's a way to get around now. So here we are, making changes and sacrifices to progress into the future, to stay alive. We can do it. I can do it. You can do it. I think that's enough from my soapbox, so I'm going to shut the fuck up. And that is it for this episode of the George Hahn podcast. You can catch up with me on my website when I decide to write on it again at georgehahn.com. I'm also on Facebook at the George Hahn page, and I'm also on Instagram and Twitter at George Hahn. And in real life, I also happen to be George Hahn. Thank you once again, guys, for listening. This is a tricky time. I'm just going to ask you to be safe. Stay at home, wash your hands, practice social distancing, and do what, the scientists and the proper authorities are telling you to do so we can get through this thing and make the sacrifices and the changes that we have to make in order to survive. All right, so take care of yourselves and then take care of everybody else, because if you haven't taken care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. You can't give away what you don't have. All right. So be smart, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you.